Welcome, everybody, to Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate. This is another topic discussion here with myself, Brandon, and Michael. How you doing today, Michael?
Doing well, Brandon. Thanks for having me on again. I'm
Oh,
excited
yeah,
to
man.
talk about some topics.
Good seeing you again. And we're coming to you this morning on Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I'm sure you have some fun plans for today and getting out and enjoying some people in your life together. So that's awesome. Um, But we also thought, this would be a great day to kind of talk about that self love as well, because that's just as important. It's really hard to have relationships and build that love with somebody else when we struggle with loving ourselves. So we thought it would just be a really cool thing to since everything you're seeing today is probably focused on relationships and you know all that type of stuff. We thought it would be a good idea to bring that focus back to yourself and how you can love yourself, how you care for yourself, and then some of our experiences, going and dealing through that process as well. Um, so yeah, I mean, looking at that concept of self care and self love, how do you feel about that, Michael?
Yeah, I think it's super important. I know for me personally, there was times in my life where I didn't always have the most, I'll say, care or self, even respect for myself. So I didn't really like who I was, maybe as a person, and also myself around others. So I know that that's a very important thing. People go through it a lot. I think it's something that everybody can relate to in one way or another. And I'm kind of excited to share a little bit about how it's affected me and kind of how I've been able to maintain some of that consistent throughout my life.
Yeah, and I think it's important to kind of talk about, focus on a little bit, because we don't always, it's not always comfortable, to do that, in life. Like, that focus may be on, other responsibilities or other people, or we're always thinking about those other relationships in our life, whether it's romantic, whether it's with friends, family, your job setting, your sport setting, whatever it is that you're in. It's always maintaining and focusing on those relationships, where it really starts with that self-love and self-care before you can really have successful relationships. And I would look at it a little bit of a difference between those two, is that self-care is that taking care of yourself, right? Doing those things that you need to do to be mentally fit, to have, feel good about yourself, and be able to, tend to your responsibilities, and just do those things that are for you. Whereas that self-love might be able to kind of feel deeply good about yourself, because I know that's where I struggled a lot throughout my life, was like being able to look at myself and say, "Oh, I love you, man." Looking in a mirror and like truly meaning that. Um, I spent a lot of time being unhappy with myself and not liking myself, um, to where I think that concept for me means a lot, because when I started, when I started changing that and started viewing myself in a different way, it really did a lot for me in making some better decisions and changing my life around a little bit, and making me a happier person overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that even from an example from my fiance, she you know goes to work, comes home, make sure there's food ready to go, make sure the little one has her hair done, make sure the older one's got everything she needs. Sometimes it neglects the time she needs for herself to maintain, her healthy relationship with herself. And, there are times where she just doesn't even have time to breathe. It's eat, sleep, work, help the girls, and go back and do it again. So I know it's important to find that time and really be able to focus on yourself. And like you said, whether it's you trying to, just take the time to remember, what makes you happy and why you're happy with yourself and within yourself. And also, what do I need to do to kind of get there in terms of taking care of myself? Is it simple as making sure I'm showering every day? Is it something as simple as making sure that I, you know, have my cup of tea or cup of coffee, at the same time, to kind of just get myself that 5 or 10 minutes of me time? Remember that, even though I'm doing this for them, I can't sacrifice my own health, physical and mental, because that's easy to do. And you could do that for years and years and years. And before you know it, you don't even know, who you are when you look in the mirror. And I know that's a scary feeling because I, had been there myself. So I think it's super important that, how we're, trying to move forward through it. And, I think it's going to be cool to really get an idea of, what we can do to help other people understand that it's okay to not love yourself and admit it, but you want to find a way to get back to where you can. And I think that's going to be something that a lot of people will take a lot away from.
Yeah, and like it's so conflicting, right? Like you sharing the example with your fiance there. There's so many responsibilities where if we decide, oh well, I'm going to put this one off so I can focus on myself, then you feel guilty, right? Or then you feel shameful because then it's like, well, I'm taking time away from, my fiance or my wife or my husband or my kids or, my friends or my family or whatever it may be. And so then it's like, well, I don't want to do that because I feel guilty or I need to be there right now. And so then you don't take that time for yourself. You don't have that self care, and now you feel worse later on because you didn't get that moment to do what you needed to do for yourself. Like you listed off a couple things there. Whether that's taking that 5 minutes, whether it's brushing your teeth, whether it's doing a little reading in the morning, stepping outside for your coffee, or being able to just kind of do those things that you enjoy, but also do those things that give you a little bit of time to process what you're feeling and understand what you're feeling. I think that goes in a lot of self-care because, when we think about self-care, it can be a lot of different things. It can be that emotional well-being, that physical well-being, um, that spiritual well-being, and then also just like your social, how you feel in social environments and everything. If we're not taking care of those and one starts to slip, it's all that act of trying to balance those different aspects of self-care out.
Yeah, and to hit on that point exactly, I know it can almost feel like a double-edged sword sometimes because you're trying to, like you said, do what I'm supposed to do for family, friends, relatives, whatever the case is. But then if you don't take the time to do yourself, you get worse. But then if you do take the time, you feel guilty for not doing what you had been doing. So that cycle kind of repeats, and then you get caught up in a situation where you aren't really getting any better. And now you know to take care of yourself. So instead of going out with your friends, you just stay home. And then that kind of fills into now I'm just kind of feeling lonely. And then, it kind of really gets you back into not wanting to be around anybody. You want to be isolated because you're not taking care of yourself. You don't want to be seen in public. You don't want anybody to, see you for, how you are, whether you're great or not, whether you don't have to, look $1,000,000 to fill $1,000,000. And I know that a lot of people, I don't want to be seen like this. Hey, I don't care if you're, in your pajamas. Like, let's go out. Let's enjoy life. We don't care about what they think. If those who mind don't matter. Those who matter don't mind. And that's something that, it's really powerful to live by when you really break that down because that's the first step. Like you don't have, if you care about what everybody else thinks, it's going to be hard to heal. You're going to be focused on the wrong things. So you can never really care about yourself, love yourself and help yourself out of, what you're trying to go through. And that's kind of a scary cycle to be in. And it's something that I fell victim to right out of college where I was just not happy with, kind of how things were going. And so I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to maintain myself. And then at the end of the day, I was just kind of like a bum, as crazy as that sounds. And, anybody who can relate knows that it's not a fun feeling. And while it's not easy to come out of, focusing on yourself is really the only way I came out of it because you can't focus on anything else or anyone else. If you can't focus on yourself, you can't really focus on anything related to family, work, life, sports, whatever. So that's kind of where I started to try to focus on what can I do to help myself? What are the little things that I either love to do that I, enjoy doing in the past or that I just maybe never tried, but hey, let me try something new. Let me get out of this and start taking care of myself. Take that shower, go for that run, make sure I'm eating food, get my coffee in and go use it as a routine because sometimes you just have to not think in order to do, which I know sounds crazy, but that helps me a lot.
No, yeah, I can relate to that a lot. Just with at various points in my life, while I was using, I definitely did not take care of myself. I did. There would probably be weeks where I didn't shower, didn't take care of myself physically, and in that way, hygiene, that wasn't anything. Definitely didn't take care of myself in any type of social aspect because I wouldn't go to anything besides go find my drug dealer and then go back into the basement and sit there by myself getting high.
Yep.
And when that's the way you're living, you don't feel too good about yourself, and it makes it really difficult to then it becomes that pattern and it keeps you in that cycle. Oh, well, I hate myself, so I'm gonna go do drugs. Oh, I'm doing drugs, so I hate myself, and then you're going back and back and back. And so, like, I remember just when I would try while I was using, and I would have those little moments of clarity where I was like, I got to do something different. Like, I'd feel like $1,000,000 just taking a shower during the day. I'd feel like I'd feel really good and accomplished if all I did that day was woke up on time and didn't spend my whole day in bed. And so I try to use those like little examples of self-care to start trying to bring some of that self-love back into my life. But then, when we don't keep up with those little habits, or we don't keep doing it and we miss a day, then it's like, I failed. So no, but now it's back to not taking care of myself. And I just find massive differences in how my day goes, how my mindset is, my perspective on life when I'm doing those little things for myself. Whether it's those little just routine things, or whether it's like, oh, I need to go and read by myself for a little bit, or I need to separate myself to, right now I'm back in online school, so I need to separate myself to
Nice.
work on some homework or some studying or whatever that may be. um so doing those little things and understanding like it's okay, because some people I think it might be selfish, right? When we talk about self-love and self-care and some of those things that go into it. But if I'm not selfish in certain aspects of my life, then I can't be, the best dad for my kids. Then I can't be the best husband for my wife. Then I can't be the best me for the people that I'm impacting throughout the day, or the people that I have a relationship with throughout the day. Because if I'm not myself, if I'm not, feeling good about myself, those interactions aren't going to be as valuable as what they could if I'm feeling really good about where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I know that, when I'm on 100%, everything's good. I'm being productive, especially on a day off. The interactions with, my daughters are very, clean. It's easy. They understand. They're, I'm mentally present enough to make sure that I'm not just talking BS and trying to get them to go along with it. I am there, but there's also days where I've, you know, maybe I did drink, more than I should have the night before. And, I didn't go to bed so late. And then I woke up and it's like 10 or 11 and I don't want to get out of bed. And so I don't. And then, before you know it, it's, 12 or 1 p.m. and I haven't really moved, haven't even brushed my teeth. And then, Michael, I'm hungry, feed me. And it's just like, I don't even want to be bothered. And I understand that that's where, you can't, especially as a parent, that's where that self-care, that self-love is super important, because if you already are feeling bad about yourself and then you have to try to help others, it just goes downhill quick, and you can fake it, a little bit, but after a while, they start seeing it, if you're, whether it's wife or husband, they start noticing that maybe you're not quite all there. And while they want to help and maybe say, hey, what's going on? They don't want it to, cause a rift or, create something that isn't there. So if I don't say anything, everything's okay. But that's kind of where, if you do have someone to lean on, it's okay to say, hey, look, I'm not feeling good today. I'm not sure why. I'm just kind of not myself. Help me out, please. I need just some time, but being able to have that type of communication with, whether it's you're living with family, whether it's your significant other, that's really important. I think that type of communication, because it helps make sure that they know what you need. And then that can kind of bounce off and, just help yourself. Like, okay, cool. I got someone in my life. They're supportive. Let me take this time to really just get myself together, 5, 10, maybe an hour, whatever it takes, but be able to really kind of build yourself back up. And then that way you don't have to feel so kind of just like lost. And I know that's where I used to feel, just kind of not sure where I was at, where I was going. Didn't really like myself when I looked in the mirror. And that self reflection, if it's negative, kind of to your point, it'll just spiral. Like, I don't feel good, so I'm going to do this. And because I do this, I don't feel good. And before you know it, you're just not happy. And that's where it's so important to either, find that kind of, that I say peace, or that type of, kind of motivation within yourself, as deep as you might have to dig to just find that light. You have to find a way to be okay with not being okay. And I know we spoke about this before, but really finding a way to move past that part of it. I acknowledged this. Now I know what I kind of need to do. What resources do I have? What can I lean on to make myself start to slowly work my way back up to kind of, being happy with myself, being happy when I look in the mirror and be like, I'm, I love you. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
important, because a lot of people, even to this day, that might be in happy relationships might not even be able to do that. I know that's sometimes the scariest part is, people are just living on the edge and maybe don't even realize it. So hopefully, people can really start to have that self reflection, but also in a healthy way, because I know that's the trouble sometimes.
Yeah, and like you were saying, with like just being aware of what you need, right? That self-awareness to honestly look at yourself and then honestly communicate that with the people around you. Like, hey, I do need this time, or I do need, these little things in my life to take care of myself, to be happy with myself and to feel good about myself. Because like you said, being able to look in the mirror, I think, and say that you love yourself, can be probably one of the most rewarding things in life. At least, for anybody that's gone through any self-doubt, or they question themselves or anything, when you can look at yourself and say that, maybe things aren't perfect, maybe you're still struggling a little bit, but when you can look at yourself and say that, it starts to bring more positivity, to where you can continue to get better, you can continue to work on that. It's that those inner thoughts that make it really challenging to be able to keep up a routine of taking care of yourself and loving yourself. Because I know there's been plenty of times where that self-talk has convinced me that I don't deserve love, I don't deserve life, I don't deserve good things in my life, I don't deserve to be happy. And so then I didn't have any self-love in those moments. And that inner voice can be really challenging to get past, that negative self-talk, when it comes to loving yourself. Because we can convince ourselves for a million different reasons why we don't deserve something. And we need to, like, it's a really important practice to start trying to change that. Like, almost that idea of fake it till you make it. Just tell yourself, like, you are worth it, you are worthy. You deserve to be happy, you deserve to feel love and to give love. Um, and that self-talk, I have found to probably be my biggest challenge with loving myself. Of, like, just being where I come from, sometimes those old emotions and feelings creep up, and so it's like, well, you were a horrible person at this point or that point, or you hurt that person, or you were wrong in that situation, so now you don't deserve this. And I found that to be my biggest struggle, when it comes to that inner dialogue with myself.
Yeah, self-talk is, it's talked about a lot, and a lot of self-help books, but really just specific to everybody's own universe. It's so easy, like you said, to convince yourself of the most negative things or the most opposite of what you want, when, as crazy as it sounds, the body and the brain can do the same thing on the reverse. You can convince yourself of the most positive things. I'm a really big believer in manifestation. Read a few good books on really just how positive self-talk as opposed to negative self-talk can create so much more positivity in your life, even if it is a little bit of fake it till you make it. Like, I know I'm a good person. I don't do crazy things. And even if I did, I'm not that anymore. I'm trying. I know I'm good. I know what I'm doing. I'm here for my family day in and day out. I make sure that I'm, not, hanging out with the boys until midnight when I got a family at home. I'm making sure that if I am taking that type of time, I'm not lying about it, or I'm not, and also making sure that, hey, I know that for me, what's really helped is in the mornings when I first wake up, that type of positive self-talk, cool, getting up, I'm going to make breakfast, my family's going to, eat good. I'm going to take care of myself, get in the shower, make sure that I'm good. And a lot of that inner talk I've helped. And it did take a while to train myself to get to a point where I can keep that consistent, because I was probably the worst, similar to you, Brandon. It's very, 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 very difficult for me to not talk negative. And it would just take the smallest thing. I remember, it was like a little fender bender thing, and I flipped out on myself. Like, I was so mad at myself. I was like, wow, how could I let this happen? I'm like, I'm so stupid. Like, and that type of derogatory talking to yourself creates that energy in your body, and then you exude that energy out to other people. Before you know it, you just don't love yourself. You don't love anybody. You don't want to be around anybody. And that's the biggest hurdle for me as well, was creating my own negative situation, because it's not meant to be negative, but we kind of create that ourselves. And I know a lot of stuff happens to us that we don't have control over. And I'm not saying that anybody's, worse or better off than anybody else, but I know that everybody has the power within themselves to respond to life the way they want to. And that's kind of where it changed for me, is I am in control of my life, my thoughts, my feelings, how I want to react. So it doesn't really matter how much negative stuff life dealt me. It's how I dealt back, and how I played those cards, if you
Yeah.
will. And I know for me that's been super important, because it's not easy to you know, come away from negative self-talk, because for probably a decade I was just not happy. I was just always the slightest thing or the most thing. I remember I didn't get into, I think a college program that I was applying for, physical therapy, and I was just like beating myself up. I was like punching pillows, yelling and screaming. A grown adult. Like, I understand we get frustrated, but that's where I learned that it's not the right path now. There's going to be other doors that open up. As long as I stay committed to being a good person, doing the things I'm supposed to be doing, taking care of myself as we get back to, really what it's about. And then, finding that love within myself. Like, I love that I take care of my family. So that's why I get that satisfaction in finding that balance of, hey, I can be mad, but I don't have to talk myself down to the point of now everybody's mad. And I think that's where it's a big switch for me, the past 5 years of my life.
Yeah, that having that ability to do that, and maintain that, just it feels really good, right? It feels really positive when you don't let that negative language creep in, and call yourself stupid, say you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not attractive enough, you're not friendly enough, you're not outgoing enough, whatever it may be that you're convincing yourself of. um when we can start to change that, and it just makes everything around us flow a little bit better, like you said, with the you know playing the hand that you're dealt in a certain way, right? Like you can have a lot of negative things happen, but then how are you approaching them? How are you able to exude those feelings that, like, okay, yeah, this went wrong, but I know I can handle it. Like, I know like, if you're in a project or you're working in a team, okay, well, this person is struggling a little bit, so I know I can pick up the slack. I know I can be successful no matter that environment that I'm in. um and sometimes that can be really hard to say, and I'm a having this conversation before about self-love and self-care. I think it's really important to be able to say that stuff out loud. Like, it's so easy to say those negative things, and so easy to think those negative things, that
Mm-hmm.
when we start practicing, like, you are good enough, looking at a mirror, or saying, I can accomplish this, I am, worthy of this good relationship, or I am worthy of this, job, or whatever it may be, or this opportunity. Then we take those opportunities, then we make the most of those things, instead of like, oh, well, this person, isn't going to love me because I don't love myself, or this person, or I'm not going to get this job because I'm not qualified. And so now I don't even try to go get it. um so when we can start doing those little things, I know that's helped me, especially through my recovery, is just changing that way that I talk to myself. Is
Mm-hmm.
I remember feeling so good. I was 25, got out of rehab, feeling really good about my life, probably made it like 2 or 3 weeks clean. And I jump on Facebook, and I'm looking at all these people I've known throughout my life. Some of the guys, people we went to college with, some people I went to
Mm.
high school with. And at that point, 25, a lot of people are graduating. They're starting a family. They're starting their career, and I'm like, oh man, now I do suck. I did ruin my life. Like,
Yeah.
I'm 25, my parents' basement, man. Like,
Mm.
I shouldn't feel this good. And so I remember thinking that, and going through a little bit of a process of like, this is the path that I'm on. This is the journey that I took. And I can't, if I start talking down to myself just because of something else in life, then that's gonna make me a failure. That's gonna make me unhappy, and probably stuck in this basement for longer than I want to be. Um, and so really changing that, and working on that self-talk, that inner dialogue, that big step is bringing it in and having that be outer dialogue, being able to say those things out loud, being able to, you know, um, talk about it in different ways, and say it in different ways to different people, helps you bring that out more and more, and embrace yourself more and more.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I know that just sometimes you have to say that stuff out loud. And, even if you're self talk, whether it's positive or negative, especially when it's negative, when you say it out loud, you almost can almost see how crazy it sounds. Like, wow, I'm so stupid. Well, no, I'm not. Why do I tell myself these things that make sense in your head, but when you say it out loud, it doesn't? And I think
Mhm.
that's a good way to start. If you're having a hard time figuring out how you're going to come away from it, or you're really stuck kind of where we were stuck at one point, just kind of not sure where to turn, no real process or something to get behind that makes sense, no treatment option that we don't know about. Just when you start saying anything, positive or negative, out loud, because the positive stuff sounds great, but the negative stuff sounds crazy. But that's where you have to find a way to just do it. You could be talking to yourself for 5 minutes. Wait a minute, I'm not a bad person. I do not hate myself. It sounds crazy. I actually love what I'm trying to do, but I just can't find it now. I can't find out where I'm going or where I've been and why I'm stuck here. But now hearing myself talk about how bad my life is, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have had it a lot worse, even from what you went through, which was crazy bad. People have it, worse. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people out there that,
100%.
didn't have access to even food or drink. You know what I mean? They, walk miles a day just to get the stuff they need for their family. And sometimes we take that for granted. And sometimes that type of, not necessarily reality check, but humbling experience, like, yeah, we have it made here, even if we go through what we go through, and it could be the worst of the worst, losing family members, getting, addicted to stuff that, you never thought you would ever get addicted to, or being hooked on stuff that, whether it's, substance related or even, non-tangible, on the internet, for example. A lot of that stuff is easy to, kind of get attached to.
Yep.
But, being able to talk out loud, I think that really helped me, because then you're able to say that to people that you love and that and then they can kind of help you either hold yourself accountable. Hey, you said you're not going to do this to yourself. Let's, what do I got to do to pick you up? Do we need to go for a walk? Do we need to go get your favorite food? Like, what do we need to do? And that's important, to try to find people in your life, old friends, family, whatever, you have. And I know some people don't have much, but knowing that it's not as bad elsewhere as it could be here. And also, you, if you have the will, if you're breathing, if you have a breath in your body, you can make a change. Like, you can do better. You just have to kind of want to, deep down, believe yourself. Hey, I don't want this life that I'm in anymore. I need to do better. And then saying that out loud helps create it. It almost makes it real once it's outside of your head. And I think that's where you can start to trust in other people to help, as well as yourself, to really, like, okay, what do I got to do to get myself where I love this again? And it's something simple. I know for me, I know we talked about it before, but really just playing soccer again really helped me remember how much I loved playing soccer and how much I love the feeling of being good at soccer. And a lot of people, can relate to that, whether it's sports, it could be music, it could be anything from any niche of, society. And people just, kind of forget or lose sight of things that may be really good at drawing. Like my 8-year-old, she loves drawing pictures. She's really good at it. You could be 25 and 30, forget how good you were at drawing. Sometimes just drawing a picture of something that makes you happy can make the world a difference. And then you look at that every morning when you wake up, like, yeah, this is me. Like, I can do this. And I think that switch over from I'm not sure to I can, in the mindset, being able to say it out loud and verbalize it, starts to help, kind of navigate that path to where you see more of a future out of this, and where you can say, you know what, I do love myself. I love my family. I love my friends, and I want to be there for them, but also be there for myself. And I know that that reconnection with ourself is the hardest part, but also the most important. And it really, really meaningful when, you have people who can help with that. But even if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You can still find solutions, avenues, just like what we're doing here. For those of you that maybe don't have people in your life that you can lean on. Lean on us, lean on this, and let us help you help yourself, because that's the hardest thing, is letting sometimes someone help you. And I think that's where I started to change, when I kind of let people back in, and that really helped me realize I can do this. Like, it's not impossible, but at the same time, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But as long as I'm open, I know there's possibilities for the future.
Yeah. And it's a journey. It's a process. There's still, like, excuse me, but there's still, days where, that kind of sways up and down, right? Like, I still have those bad days, or maybe it's, those bad moments. But the difference between, what that journey was before to what it is now, I don't let that go for too long. I can feel it coming. I can feel, like, that self doubt start creeping in. I can catch those thoughts a little bit earlier of, oh, you're not worth it, or you're not good enough. And it's that process of like, okay, now this is happening. I'm starting to feel this way. I need to take a step back and, you know, kind of like you just said, reconnect with myself. I need to take a few minutes or a day or whatever it may be, and kind of bring everything back in and understand, okay, why am I starting to doubt myself again? Why is that self-love starting to creep away instead of build back up? And when we're on that journey, when we're processing that and going through it, you're going to struggle at times. Like, it's going to be hard. It's not always easy. And again, I think that's always important to mention when you're having conversations and discussions like this, is like, once you start fixing it, doesn't mean it's going to be fixed. It means it's that you're open, your mind's open to the idea of, I'm on this journey forever, or at least inside pass on and not here anymore. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to improve every day. And when you have that open-mindedness and that willingness to say, okay, yeah, I love myself now. Tomorrow might be a little bit different, but I'll approach that as it comes, and I'll be able to work on it and not let it get to the depths where it did before. Like, I'm not going to let that self-doubt drive me back to, putting a needle in my arm and being by myself in a dark basement. Like, I'm not gonna let that self-doubt drive me to those extents anymore. Now it might drive me to being in bed and for a little bit longer, something like that. But then again, I can realize that and continue to work on it and process it, and always be, at least pushing forward or inching forward, just a little bit when it comes to that stuff. So, like, figure out what works for you. What works for me is not going to work for Michael, or what works for Michael might be a little different than me. There's so many different things we can try and we can do, like, to work on that self-love. Maybe it's writing a little note, putting it on the mirror. So every morning you wake up and you look in the mirror, just that you see that you are beautiful. You're going to have a great day. You're going to see that little message. Maybe it's that little reminder going off, in your phone. And so just that message pops up, and that encourages that self-love, and just a reminder to say, hey, like, take a minute for yourself, appreciate yourself. Because everything around you is going to be so much better when you really truly feel that self-love. Although it's a process to get there, and it's a process to maintain, and a journey to maintain, I think it really radiates off people when you can see that in somebody else. Like, oh, they have some self-love and some self-confidence, and they take care of themselves, and that brings up, I think, everybody else around them at times.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the best way to kind of sum it all up, is you really want to make sure that, if you get to the point where you are, even if it's a day-to-day process, you're already acknowledged, hey, this is where I'm at. I'm growing. One day forward might be a step forward. The next day might be a half a step back, and that's okay. But as long as you can kind of pull yourself out in that moment where you start to feel like you're falling back in, that's the difference from where you were before you got to that point where you just didn't know. You had no plan in place. You had no, way to know, what you were going to do. But now, what, I was good yesterday. Hey, I took a little bit back today. What I need to do is, when's my next day off? A few days from now, that's the day I need to do something that I know will make me happy. And it could be different for everybody. It's the same that you said. What's going to work for me may not work for you, may not work for the next person. For me, sometimes it's as simple as playing video games. And I know that, in my 30s, that's might seem irresponsible to some people, and I get it. It's not something that I do all the time, but, sometimes playing, FIFA, like we used to play all the time, just kind of brings back some of the good memories, the nostalgia, the feel goods that I enjoyed throughout my life, high school, college, and beyond, where, yeah, I'm not binge playing for 8 hours, but I might hop on for a few games. It gets me happy. I kind of get in that mode of, okay, cool. Now that I played a couple games, now I know the dishes need to be done. Now I need to take the trash out. Now I can kind of get back to my P's and Q's and make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing that day. Because really just doing a little bit better. And I think I spoke briefly on this last time, just doing a little bit better each day, a little bit more today than I did yesterday. Even if you don't necessarily feel like you did more, just focusing on doing a little bit better. If you have to have that conversation with somebody, if you need to, practice looking in the mirror, sounds silly, it's what I did, not happy. Okay.
Yep.
How do I get a little happier the next day? okay, I feel better about myself today. Okay, cool. A week from now, I can really look at myself. And yeah, there was times where I couldn't look at myself in the mirror, whether it was something that I did to friends or family. I remember I got in trouble, with the law one time, back, probably 8 or 9 years ago. And it was just, I was almost sick to my stomach at looking at myself because what I was a part of and how I became okay with that type of lifestyle. And that's where you just have to just dig your feet in the ground. Hey, today I'm going to do better than I did yesterday. One foot in front of the other, focus on myself when I can. And sometimes, even if it's family first, which it always is for me, there was a time when I just had to tell my family I need a day or 2 or 3 to really figure out what I have going on, because for some reason I'm not me. I know it's not who I am. I'm a very positive person most of the time. So if it's all of a sudden I'm negative, I can't let that affect everybody around me. And I know a lot of people will just kind of be snappy, or they'll get, what are you doing? Leave me alone. And then you don't know why you're reacting that way. And it kind of starts to tear maybe a great relationship you have. And it could be a significant other. It just could be your kids. It could even be your parents or your family. And that's where, you don't mean to, and you don't mean it in the moment. But if you don't really say anything to anybody, you can't admit that you're not doing well and you need time. They don't have a reason to know anything else other than you kind of reacting for no reason. So that's where, that type of growth can start to happen as you really start to trust in that process. Like, just do a little bit better. I know that it wasn't a great day. Tomorrow I can do better. But then holding yourself accountable, because you can just say it. Anybody can say tomorrow's going to be a better day. And then you just do the same things, but really taking a focus on wanting to. As soon as you open your mind up to it, like we said, and you actually take the time to really, really work on yourself, that's when I noticed the most improvement. And I did find it a little easier each day that I was willing to just, I'm not happy, but I'm getting happier. I'm not happy as I want to be, but I'm getting there. And eventually I got to a point where, in a similar way to you, family, I love my life, I have a great job, and I'm not saying that, everybody's going to get that right away, because I didn't, and I know you didn't either. It's just going to take time, but trusting that you have that plan, because when you get there, like we are now, we just want to radiate that energy outward. Like, everything could be great and will be great if you want it to be great. If you don't want it to be great, maybe it won't be. And that's kind of where you're still in that path of not sure if you are, happy with yourself. And that's the hurdle. But hopefully this helps people really start to learn that it's sometimes just that first step of acknowledging it, shedding the light on yourself, which is not easy to do. It never is, and it never will be. But if you can take that step, then you can make it. And I firmly believe that.
And I just listening to you, to you say, especially on that last part, I know there's moments in my life where you think, well, it's, I'm not even worth it. And like, everybody's worth that, that ability to be happy and to love yourself, as long as it's, what you're doing isn't hurting or, affecting others in a negative way. Then you do deserve to love yourself. You do deserve to feel that all the time. Or as much as you can, right? It's not going to be all the time, but as much as you possibly can. You're worth it, and sometimes that's the part we struggle with the most, is just understanding, like, am I even worth this point? Well, yeah, you might be struggling, you might be down, you might be, going through it. But give yourself a break sometimes and give yourself that opportunity to open up to new ideas, try new things. If one thing didn't work for you, don't just give up. Try something else tomorrow. Like you said, you always try to do just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Find what works for you, and maintain that, and that'll change as you go through life. I know that's changed for me, from being younger to being on my own, to being an adult, to having kids, to being a husband. It changes all the time, and being open to that change can really help you grow in that ability to take care of yourself and have that self-love. And then when you can do that, it just brings in all that extra love from around you, and everything around that can grow more and more together. So I thought that's a really big one. I think that's a great one to talk about, and being vulnerable, talking about it. I think that's, like you said, you got to be vulnerable. You got to shed the light on it sometimes to be able to actually like look at it and say, oh yeah, this is where I'm struggling, and then you got to admit it. And being vulnerable, having those discussions is just is that first step to continuing to grow and get better as you go through life. So, thank you for joining us again. Thanks for sitting here and having a conversation, Michael.
Absolutely, Brandon. Thanks. It's
Yeah.
always a pleasure to have me on. I love
Yeah.
these, conversations we have because, it could just be the one line or one phrase that, one of us said that, somebody who really doesn't know what they're doing in life or where they're at in their journey to recovery or health is it's all it takes. Just one clip. They see something like, what, wow, I hadn't thought about how I think you mentioned a friend of yours, had a similar, impactful moment. And
Yep.
that's all we want to try to do. We are not by any means perfect and not claiming that I'm, all of a sudden this happy Tony Robbins rah rah type of
Yeah.
guy, but I am happy with myself. I've gotten to a place where I know that what I'm doing is always for my family first, but also not neglecting myself. And I think that sometimes, that's the biggest hurdle once you get to a point of happiness. Finding that balance is crucial because there are days where I get to be by myself and, I'm just on my phone or I am playing some video games and that's my way of getting away that's keeping myself happy. Yours could be completely different. Maybe you like to go outside, ride a bike, work out, a lot of different things to find what's you. But I think the most important thing was taking that time. And that's where I've had a great time, learning. And I hope other people can learn as well, whether they're at the beginning of this journey where they're just starting to kind of illuminate their life or they're ready to radiate this, to everyone else. I'm excited to always be a part of it. And thanks again, man. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, man, I've loved reconnecting with you and building that again. It's been a fun couple weeks doing that. And if there's anything that people want to see, comment it and a certain type of discussion. Me and Michael just been throwing around some different ideas of some different topics, and so we've enjoyed doing that. So if there's a certain one that you want to see or hear some of our experiences with, or that you're just struggling with the most, so sometimes hearing something else or a different perspective on it can be really helpful. Let us know. But we appreciate you joining us again on another topic discussion on Illuminate, Navigate, and Radiate. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, bro. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.